Real fast here. Danny Garcia made an announcement this weekend that he's moving up to junior middleweight. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's not a big thing. Okay. I just wanted to bring this up because we were mentioning some Charlo talk a few episodes ago. And we have one Charlo brother at 160, other Charlo at 154 who has 3 belts. And there was a talk about him fighting Jared Hurt. Jared Hurt was at one time the man at 154 before he had a setback loss about a year and a half ago. And so Jared Hurt has been on the comeback and he's had a few fights in line basically. And he was asking for a Charlo fight. And Charlo's like, nah, he had his opportunity and that was big time, but his team, he needs to win some more fights. And I was wondering when his next fight was going to be because I know that he wants to have a major unification because I think it's Patrick Testera has the WBO belt. He just won that title a few months back. So, of course, we're seeing everybody nowadays want to be the undisputed champion. I'm glad that people are actually want to get all the belts and want to be the man. You know what I'm saying? Forget saying, like, I was going to do this. I'm going to fight mandatories. I want it all. I want everybody to know that I am this person here. But, of course, with COVID, there's been some delays in fights getting signed here. And I seem like this is the reason here. It look like we might, I'm just predicting, just from my boxing knowledge, I'm seeing probably a 2-fight deal possibly here that we're going to see Charlo fight somebody soon. What's going to be announced? And then Danny Garcia is going to have his first fight at 154, and that's going to set them up to have a major fight at 154, the way he's looking right now. And I'm going to get your opinion on this. I think that Danny Garcia is moving up because he can't make 147, and there's no good fights for him at 147 anymore because he lost to Errol Spence, and he got the brakes beaten off of him, right? So the only major fight for him we could see would probably be a rematch with Keith Thurman. You know, him fighting Keith Thurman, don't want to see that fight. I'm not interested in that. Or him fighting Mikey Garcia and doing that because he's trying to fight Manny Pacquiao. And then you got Terrence Crawford. We know that's not happening because the cross street between PBC and ESPN. So I'm looking at this at he can't make 147. He doesn't have any dance partners at 147. So the logical step we see many fighters do is they go up to 154 because you get up with age. It's hard to scale back. But this is just him trying to keep his career alive. Not alive, but still continue his career. But this is the last stop for him. We saw how small he was against Errol Spence. And if he fights someone who's Charlo, who's way bigger than Spence, if that fight really comes down, I'm seeing Danny going to get hurt like he did against Spence. He got hurt against Spence.
Yeah, and Danny didn't. We talked about this pre-meeting. I mean, when he got to at 140 was where his knockout power was where it ended at really. When he got to 147, except for the fight against Brandon Rios and Paulie Malignaggi, he really
against guys who can't punch.
Exactly, where he had no fear about taking a hit, and he'll be basically where he didn't have to counter punch at all. Really, he basically just kind of needed to get into their zone and be able to throw a punch, and they were never going to. He was never in danger of taking any punishment, right? But after that, I mean, most of his fights were, decision fights. He wasn't really. His power ended at 140. So, am I excited about him going to 154? No, and there's really no other choice for me to react that way. He didn't show me much at 147 that would have made me feel comfortable or happy about him being the 154 and feeling that he can pose a threat to the Charlo brother over there.
Mm-hmm.
Still don't, right? So he's gonna fight most likely some tomato can at 154 to kind of boost up his profile a bit. Probably, if he knocks him out, I'll be surprised. I mean, the guy's a real serious tomato can with a glass chin. Not even glass chin. Just what's even worse than glass, right? Just like thin ice, real thin ice.
Black ice. Gotta be careful, them guys. Black ice.
No, that's Charlo. That's Charlo.
Yeah,
that'll be Charlo. There'll be black eyes then. Basically, he's fighting a snowflake.
Yeah,
and he'll beat that snowflake, and if he beats him by knockout, that's a snowflake. If not, it'll be a tomato can unanimous decision, and he fights Charlo and then gets his ass kicked.
Yeah, I just want to bring it up because I saw the headline on Fight Hype. Shout out to Fight Hype. I've been following them guys for like a good 11, 12 years, so they've been putting in the work. So Fight Hype, y'all do good work on boxing. Real appreciate y'all.
The interviews are excellent.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all. So I want to show some love to some other boxing sites too as well. We don't discriminate. If there's other guys doing good work, we want to shout them out too as well. So he made that announcement, and he's a good fighter. You know what I mean? Like he's had a really darn good career, But when you're fighting Errol Spence, and Errol Spence at the weigh-in was like, 146.4? He was under 147. It wasn't like he had a hard time making weight. This was the first fight that I mentioned that Errol Spence came in ready. Like he normally walks around like 180, 190. Before camp, he was like 160. Before he even had to lose any weight. You know, he was ready to go after that car accident. And we see him in physical peak shape at 146. And then overnight, when he ballooned up, it looked like that Spence was a middleweight and Garcia still looked like he was at 140. It was that big of a size. I mean, like just the back and the shoulders, you just seen the width on that, and you're gonna go another division higher. Like, I understand, like, yeah, I know it's only 7 pounds. In boxing, you see who guys can get to those 7 pounds and who fits in that division, and you see, like, yo, Danny can probably get a couple of fights here and there. He gets that Charlo fight. I think I'm gonna put it out here right now. It's gonna be worse than the Spence fight. This was his first fight off that horrific car accident where the car flipped over and he was thrown out of the car and came back and gave him that beat down. Charlo ain't been thrown out no damn car. Charlo, he fights his brother every day on social media. You know what I'm saying? They get into it all the damn time. Lion's Den. All right. So I'm just coming out saying, hey, I'm happy that Danny's continues his career. But when we've seen the Lowe's is reading, the road is leading to a Charlo fight in the PBC banner. You know, maybe he might fight a Herd down the line. I don't know. There's a lot of guys in there. Lara, there's a lot of people at 154, but we can see the end games there. If that happens, whoo. That's all I gotta say is.
And here's the thing my issue I had with Garcia and stuff. When he was at junior welterweight, he was hungry. He was going after it. To me, the highlight of his entire career to this day is still beating Lucas Matisse, because Matisse at the time was a knockout artist and a very feared fighter in the light welterweight division. And Danny Garcia put in that work, got a unanimous decision victory, retained his titles there. But it was, to me, the best fight of his entire career, because if you look at the rest of his career, and say you never watched his fight, but just looked up his fighting career and where things were going, you can tell he coasted off a bit. Basically, he only fought twice in 2016, once in 2017. After he fought Keith Thurman in March 4, 2017, and did not fight for like another year.
Yeah.
Beats Brandon Rios, loses to Porter. So he fights twice in 2018 and then only fights once in 2019, back in April 2019.
This is when him and Thurman were doing the 1 or 2 fights a year type of thing, man. And it was pissing me off too.
And Garcia was driving me crazy. He pissed me off because I followed him and I liked where his trajectory was going. And I didn't like how the rest of his career was managed for himself and through his team, because I thought he slowed down. He looked like he slowed down wanting to get it. Like, to me, like he coasted off of a great victory, was Lucas Matisse, and then after that, he didn't make me a believer in what he was. I was looking at somebody that I was like, hey, this guy could be something promising.
And let me add too, I'm glad you brought that up about Lucas Matisse. I was the only one in the building in Vegas that was rooting for Danny Garcia. Like, when that happened, Lucas Matisse was a world beater. I never forget when Richard Schaefer came in the ring, the fight before, when they got the fight announced, he called him the Argentinian Manny Pacquiao. Like, Lucas Matisse, and at that run at 140, there's a reason why his name was the Machine. And in the loss that he had, he was robbed. I can clearly say that I watched those fights. He was robbed. And then to see Danny, I remember being in the building and I'm like, yo, all he do is win, because he's not the fastest guy. He was all about timing. And then his timing was pitch perfect when he got the shot on you. So it's the shots you don't see that knock you out. So it wasn't like he had the power. He was strong. But if you don't see it coming, that's worse than seeing it coming if you had straight power and you coming through. So I was the only one in the building. I wish I put money on that fight, because if you can see old podcasts, I'm like, Matisse. Then the day before the fight, I was like, you know what? I changed my mind. I've done enough homework here. And it's Danny. Danny can fight. You know, I just think that now he's at a size now that sometimes the guys can only go too far. Like, you can only go up to you're not like Manny Pacquiao or Floyd, where it doesn't matter where you go up, your boxing skills can translate. You can fight a guy 20 pounds heavier than you, and I think you still win. Manny can fight a guy at middleweight, and I think he will kill most of the middleweights. You know, same thing with Floyd. He can go up to 168. Those guys, even though they'll never do that, their skills are just so good. You know, Danny, I think this is the end for him. Like, this is the last division for him.
Well, it's definitely the last division for him. And look, he's still a young man.
Oh, yeah. He's very young. Yeah.
32 years old and stuff. But the way
his size has a cap life.
It's not just at a cap life, but I think a lot of he's done that to himself. Look, I think with fighters and stuff over time, I mean, you can see the great fighters adjust when their power isn't there anymore, right? So all of a sudden, you might have most of his career, he was a counter puncher.
Yeah,
he could have still gone away from that in the welterweight division and not have to be so much of a counter puncher, but kind of know when to counter punch and know when he needs to be the one coming forward and have to get points, right? If you're not knocking out people, how are you getting your points? So are you telling me you're going to basically just kind of sit there and wait for the fight to come to you all the time? You can't always do that, especially when you don't have the power at 147 the way you did it at 140. At 140 against Lucas Matisse, you could be the counter puncher because Lucas was always coming
forward you. Yeah.
And I mean, let me rattle off some of the 140. Other than Lucas Matisse, he fought Eric Morales twice and Amir Khan, Zab Judah. He basically fought fighters that came forward and guys he can counter punch. For the most part, they fought to his style. At 147, he's fought some better fighters, and he doesn't have the power there. So you basically need to kind of change your style at welterweight, so that way when you got to junior middleweight, you would be able to fight a different style. And he hasn't changed any of it.
And I'm saying that's why I'm saying I don't believe in this going to this next division, because the last fight, his dad was pleading for him. His dad was like, "Come on, Danny, you have to do something here." He was begging him to throw punches, and Danny was still looking for the perfect shot. He was still waiting. And if you're not a knockout artist, like I said, if you're just a counter puncher who times good and you're not a knockout artist, you just time it perfectly so you see you can land that clean shot, you ain't stopping a guy like Spence. Spence was just eating those punches like it was candy. He was like, boom, okay. So if he tries to apply that same strategy against a Charlo or anybody else, even a Jared Hurd who comes in, he's going to throw 100 punches around, who was bigger, taller, longer than you, and coming forward. Now, for Danny, that's perfect for being a counter puncher. But if someone's longer and taller and bigger than you, who's going to overwhelm you, he's got to switch it up. And the thing is, if he's not listening to his dad, do we believe he's not going to do it? If his dad is in the ring telling you, Danny, do something, and we're still seeing him fight the same way, I don't see him changing.
He never did his best Paulie Malignaggi impersonation after beating Paulie Malignaggi. There are times where you need to just pump out the jab because you're going to go against a fighter who's got a different build, a bigger build than what you currently present, and you might have to fight him a different way. You cannot counterpunch someone who's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage, 3-inch height advantage. You basically need to change the way you fight. And if that means coming forward a little bit, you come forward when you need to, pump out the jab when you need to, and then counterpunch less, but do it at the appropriate time. So he never changed who his fighting style was, and I don't have any hope for him at 154.
Yeah. So I just wanted to touch on that, that he made that announcement. So we're going to see some fights in the PBC banner for 54. I mean, even though we don't see anything, and the name value alone is going to be some interesting talk whoever he signs on the fight the next year or so, between the end of this year and next year. So talk about that here. So let's close out.